Hey, Melanie.
Hi, Christine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I'm glad you were able to. I just got your email with the slides. I'm like, okay, I can handle that just in case.
I
Um,
I see now what it's. I couldn't remember what it was, so I didn't want to panic in the middle. So I should be able to just share my screen, but thank you for being there.
no problem at all. Do you just want me to introduce you and then you just go right into your presentation and we'll be good to go?
Yeah, that'll work. And I know Shelly connected with you or somebody this morning. So
I think it was someone else. Yeah.
oh, good. Okay, so she feels like she's set and she's going to join us at any point. She just wasn't sure if she would have the ability to be a presenter or if she was just going to be able to show up as a viewer. So I told her I didn't know.
I don't. I'm just the moderator, so I was on the committee, so I just got volunteered to be a moderator, which I love doing. But yeah, the background stuff that's going on, I'm not in charge of that. So it's just kind of like, well, just make sure you're, running your session the way you should run your session. So um,
Okay.
I'll run this however you guys want. If you want to just do once I introduce you, do your presentation however you want to involve Shelly, feel free. And then I'll monitor the chat. And do you want me to just ask the questions at the end of the presentation that are in the chat?
You mean answer the questions that people are putting in there? Yeah,
Hmm.
sure. I guess if there's anything, I mean, you're welcome to interrupt me if there's something pertinent that comes up. But yeah, do you happen to know, and I can ask the group once we start, how many people are not from Ohio that are attending the conference?
I think these are all Ohio people
Mm.
because the main sponsors, of course, is ODOT, the Ohio Department of Transportation,
Mhm.
and then the Cincinnati African American Chamber. So I think we're going to be dealing with probably 99% of them will be Ohio employers.
Okay, good. That's
All
awesome.
right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna let my I'm gonna turn my camera off and let my dog out one more time so he does.
Okay.
I'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending the We Mean Business workshop. Today, we have with us Christine Marlin, and she is with Damascus, and she is going to give us great information about how you should implement a second chance program for your employees. Christine, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. And thank you for sticking around so I can figure out how to share my screen. I'm not sure that I know how to do that. And welcome to everyone. I'm wondering if my co-presenter is on the call. I'm not sure if there's any way for me to know that. So I'm going to keep going. And if she joins me, I will be happy to introduce you to her as well. As Melanie mentioned, my name is Christine Moralin, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer for Damascus Reentry here in Cincinnati. And for those of you who are not familiar with what we do, Damascus is a nonprofit second chance staffing and prison reentry organization. And we operate currently in Ohio and in Northern Kentucky with plans to expand to other states. And I want to share off the top that second chance hiring is not necessarily a term that we use inside our organization, but it certainly is an accepted way of describing what it is that we do. And what we do is that we work only with people who are returning from incarceration and who have felony backgrounds, and preparing them for release, and then also partnering them with employment opportunities throughout Ohio. So second chance hiring is a term that's familiar with everyone. So we use it in a lot of ways in forums just like this so that people understand. So we're all talking the same language. Also joining me today, and I'm hoping she's somewhere in the audience and can join me, is my friend Shelly Castellini. And Shelly is the human resources generalist for Rhinestall Corporation. Those of you who are in the Cincinnati area, Rhinestall is in Mason, Ohio. And Shelly and I worked together. She worked at a different employer. There she is. She worked at a different employer, and she'll be speaking later in this call about what it is to implement second chance hiring. She was on the ground floor at her other employer when we put people to work there. And so she can share with you from the inside perspective what it's like to work with a second chance organization, and what some of those steps and missteps might have been in terms of actually putting someone to work. So welcome, Shelly. I'm glad you figured out the technology. I'm going to try to share my screen with everyone. So Melody, what I see when I hit that computer button is just my face. So are you able to guide me in any way about how to get my PowerPoint up here?
Let me try it for you. 1 second.
Thank you. I'm also curious if there's anyone who's attending this session who is not from Ohio. Most of the work that we have done is in Ohio and Northern Kentucky. And so if there's anyone who's not from Ohio, I'm just curious. It's just so that if there's something else I can direct your way, I will make sure I do that.
Hey, Christine, do you see the bottom of your picture? It should be like a screen there. If you click that, it'll be able to show your screen.
The bottom of my screen.
You should see something look like a TV screen or a PC screen.
I did that.
If you click that, it should be able to.
What I get is just a copy of us. So my PowerPoint's on my desktop. How do I?
So if you click it, you should click the entire screen and then hit share. And then open up your PowerPoint.
I'm sorry. I'm not doing a good job. I apologize.
No, you're okay. Take your time.
So when I click that computer screen,
it should be like a white pop-up box that opened up, and it, like you said, it's like a copy of us. If you click that and then click share, it'll allow you to share your screen.
So I've done that. I sent it to Melanie. Melanie, can you help me? Is she doing the same thing, trying to figure out how to get it up there?
No, I can get it up for you. I'll just share my screen. It's no problem at all.
While she's doing, Stash, you made that look so easy. Okay, if you could just start the presentation. Am I doing it or are you?
No, I'll just do it for you and just let me know when you need me to advance your slides.
Thank you. I do want to share with the audience that Damascus is just one version of Second Chance Hiring. And if you are in this area, you may have already, if you're interested in this, you may have already experienced some version of it. We're going to share our model with you. And I'm interested if you've had the experience somewhere else, whether it's in your organization or working with another group. I'm interested in knowing what worked, what didn't as well. We're pretty confident in our model. Obviously, that's why we're speaking on it today. But I just want to share how I got to be in this space with you. I have been going into prisons and jails for the last 20 years. I was the director of prison ministries for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati for a number of years and going in that capacity. And before that, I had a career in corporate America. So I understand the business aspect of things as well. But in 2015, my husband and I decided we were going to be part of the reentry world. And so we began researching other organizations, not just here. Yeah, you want to hit, yep, that's it. You want to hit, not just here, but also in other parts of the country. And what we learned was that while there are great organizations doing pieces of reentry, we wanted to create something that was on the continuum, something that we started inside the prison, worked with people through the transition and all the way out to the outside. And so that's the crux of what Damascus does. And I'll share more about that as we go along. 10 years ago in a very different economy, people were having trouble coming out of incarceration and getting employment. And as we all know, that has changed in the last 10 years for different reasons, whether it's the pandemic or just the economy being strong, and people did have the opportunity, but there are still barriers for people who have criminal records, in some ways for good reasons. But as we wait for COVID to figure out what it's going to do, we're very anxious to see what happens next for our economy and for employers. I'm sure you are as well. And so we want to be part of that solution. What I will say is that in the last 7 years, we have put over 4,000 people to work in the Cincinnati region, Columbus region, and Northern Kentucky who have had felony backgrounds. And that's what we want to build on today in our presentation. So Melanie, if you don't mind going through that whole screen, I'll tell you what we're going to cover in the next 15 minutes. 3 things that we agree on as business people. And also I want to dispel some myths that there might be out there about second chance hiring. Also a couple of reasons, 3 reasons why second chance hiring can be a win for your organization. I know Shelly will also expound on that later. Also, it's important to talk about the ways that this falls apart. It does fall apart sometimes. And so we want to be really upfront about if you're considering doing this in your organization, there are ways in which it will fail. And then I want to show you just some real life examples of people that we've worked with who are out working currently in the world as part of the team. And then at the end, just a few more pieces for you to know about what I would and wouldn't do if I were you in exploring second chance hiring. Next slide, please. So that's our 5-year anniversary. But as I mentioned, we are 7 years old. Damascus is 7 years old now. And we currently have a staff of 15 people that are full-time, and we have 120 people working as part of our staffing out in the world somewhere. And because of COVID, we are on a hiring freeze. So I'd like to say that had COVID not hit, we would have tripled the staff right now, and we would be in triple the places. But as everyone on this call knows, COVID did that to everyone. And there are essentially 4 pieces to what we do. The first one is we are a prison reentry organization. So we partner with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections to deliver our curriculum inside the prisons for people who are within a year or 2 of release. And that curriculum is important for prep because it isn't just about how do you survive the workplace or how do you write a resume. It has nothing about that necessarily. It's more about the route. How did you get to incarceration? What were the circumstances that led you to the choices that led you to incarceration? And then we spend time working with people on things like what is proper workforce etiquette, How do you manage yourself in relationships when you get back out? How do you essentially avoid coming back to prison? That's the essence of our curriculum. Then we stay with people on their transition home. So if we have people that are coming out of our classrooms and now coming back home, we have a team that met them while they were in prison and they follow them out. And so that transition is an important piece because all of the plans that people have in prison can blow up in about 20 seconds when they reach the door. So our transition team reminds people what they say they are going to do next, not what we say they're going to do next, but what they say they're going to do next. And we stay with them on that walk. The third piece is the employment partner, which I mentioned, and we have employers throughout the Cincinnati and the Columbus and the Northern Kentucky region. And what's different about that, our staffing model is not unique. Staffing is staffing, but what is unique to what we do is that we only work with people who have felony backgrounds, and we only work with partners who understand that concept and who are willing to offer a 90 days temp to permanent hire opportunity for the men and women that we work with. And Shelly, again, will say more about that from her organization, why that matters. And then the last piece of what Damascus does is our social support, because what if you've had employees before, it's not always work that derails somebody. It's their transportation situation, or it's their relationship situation, or it's a death in the family, or things outside of work. So the Damascus team, once we place someone somewhere, we stay with them so that when they're having that kind of day at your work site, they can call us at any point and we can walk through the options that they have. So Melanie, if you could click the stats on there. As I mentioned before, we've put almost 4,000 people to work in the first 7 years, which meant $12 million in wages have gone into the Ohio economy. And we have the partners that I mentioned, and we'll be expanding, COVID notwithstanding, to the rest of Ohio later this year. All right, next way. And this is just a quick way. You can list all these. There are 3. Thank you. Just want to reiterate why Damascus has planted its flag as an expert in second chance hiring. We have among our staff 3 decades in business. So that's small business, that's corporations, that's startup world. We have on purpose, we have a staff that understands what it's like to be in the business community, what you're trying to accomplish at your place of employment. The second way is that we are continuum. As I mentioned, we work all the way inside the prison through the outside of the prison, and we don't close. So if you have a third shift and our people are on your third shift, then we have to be available on third shift if something goes sideways. So we are a 24/7 operation, and we think that's important, and we know that's a distinctive attribute of our organization. And the third way is we're in business to help you with your business. We are trying to solve a meta problem, a social problem, an economic justice problem, a social justice problem. And the only way we can do that is if everyone in the equation wins. So that means the people that we're working with, the partners, the employment partners we're working with, and everyone along the line. We have to work for solutions that everyone can agree on. Next slide, please. All right, so 3 things we can agree on. For you might recognize this. Turnover is expensive. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. If you have problems on your production floor or your manufacturing floor now, it has nothing to do with second chance hiring. There's absenteeism, there's turnover, there's drugs in every organization, unfortunately. We know that people will chase an opportunity for a 25 or 50 cent wage increase. We know that valuable people at your employment site will leave for reasons that you can't talk them out of. That's already happening. So that's not an attribute of the criminal justice. That's an attribute of under-resourced lives. That's poverty. And so what we're talking about is second chance hiring, but really what we're talking about is working with a population that has an under-resourced life, meaning if one thing falls apart, they all fall apart. Oh, what happened? There we go. And so we know that turnover is expensive. What we also know as an organization is that you have a business to run. It is not Damascus's job to tell you how to run your business. We are matching our cultures And that's important because when we are getting people ready for work, for the work site, we spend a lot of time talking to them about what your goals are, not just what their goals are, because they're about to join your workforce. And so when someone in my classroom talks about how, well, what happens if my grandmother dies and I don't have days off that I can use? Why wouldn't my employer just be a good guy and just know that he's got a grandma? Why wouldn't he just let me off work? So we have a lot of really in-depth discussions about what the employer's goals are don't mirror your grandmother. And so that's unfortunate, but that's life. And if you're going to work in an environment that has a bottom line and has stakeholders that they have to appease, then you have to adapt to their culture and not vice versa. And the third point that we agree on is the labor pool is finite. If you are having trouble finding workers, like many businesses are right now, people are cycling throughout. They're going down the street. They're listening to their friends. They're moving from one place to another. Shelly hires all day long. She knows exactly what I'm talking about here. So since we know this, we know these are our variables, we are working inside of that. So what I can say is if you consider second chance hiring, at the very least, you're going to expand your labor pool because it's a group of people you may not have even let in the door in the past. So let me move through some myths. Next slide. There we go. So I know I'm making this sound simple, like let's just bring in people that we've never considered from an HR perspective before. That'll be easy. Well, I don't think it's easy. But I will say this. There are things that people believe about second chance hiring that it's been a little bit fun for us to debunk. Like I say, I've been in prisons for about 20 years, and I've never taken anyone into a prison with me who didn't come out and say, well, those people are really normal. It's a shocker to people to go into prison if you've not been in there and recognize that a lot of people you're talking with and walking with are no different than you, except by, one incident that went wrong. So that's not to say that there are people that are in prison that I would never put at your work site. But one of the things that early employment partners said to us is, I can't put my other employees at risk, as if the people that we were going to bring you were going to put your employees in the trunk at lunch with duct tape. And so I can promise you that has not happened. I've had employers suggest that it might, and it's never happened. It probably will never happen. Shelly, did it happen where you were?
Never.
Okay, good. That is good to know.
Never.
They will not do that. There are moments, like every employee and every work site, where people lose their cool or lose their ride or lose their way in life. Those things for sure we know are going to happen. But what doesn't happen is the drama that people naturally and not unfairly associate with people that are coming out of incarceration. The second thing is, if the only thing you know about prison and reentry and people who have been incarcerated comes from the media, that's all you have to inform you about what's possible in the workplace. And what I can say is this, it's the media's job to get you to come back and either buy another newspaper or buy another ad or watch the next session. So of course, everything is sensationalized. We all know this in theory. So if you're relying on the media to tell you who is coming out of incarceration and what their personalities and their potentialities are, you don't need to worry. That's not what it looks like. And the third thing that we learned really early when we were talking to employers about what was possible in this arena is that a lot of employers, by no fault of their own, do not have a working knowledge of what the charges that we are working with actually mean. When we think of the term, let's say felonious assault, I think a lot of people naturally conjure up this very dangerous, very violent man who is going to take your employees and duct tape them and put them in the trunk. But the truth is there are about 10 different definitions of what felonious assault means, including a bar fight. If I could see everyone on this call, I would ask you to raise your hand if you've ever been in a bar fight. That is a felonious assault. So what we have done in our first 7 years is offer to any employer that's interested education about what charges look like, what they mean, what the story could be behind a certain charge, in order to erase some of the stigma attached to what we know on paper that might dissuade us from allowing someone to be part of our workforce. Next slide. So I put a caveat on here, 3 reasons that second chance hiring is a win. And I'm going to go through these really quickly because I want questions that might be very specific to what your needs are, your organization is. These are very high level. But the caveat that I put on here is some of you may have tried this. There might be people on organizations on this call that have said, look, we've always been open to people with backgrounds and records. And so, but listen, Christine, it didn't work out so well. It didn't go so well. And so I'm looking for the secret sauce. Like, how do we do this? The caveat is not all second chance organizations or opportunities are created equal. Just as I hope all of you on this call will profess to be an expert in your particular field or industry, we are not shy about suggesting that we know how to do this pretty well. It's not just about pointing people who happen to have backgrounds to jobs. That doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And if you've been on the other side of that, you know it doesn't work. The difference between that model and what we're talking about is the social support. It's the constant support. It's the reinforcement. It's the optimism. And it's creating opportunities that actually can lead somewhere. It's not temp work. It's not day labor. And if you at your organization are still paying $13 an hour, you know why you're not getting people. You understand that. So this is not that. What we're saying is if you do second chance hiring a certain way and with the proper support and partners, it is a win. The first reason it's a win is that when people get an actual chance, they are loyal to you. And by actual chance, I mean that there is a place that they can succeed, and they can succeed without feeling like they are set apart. And so we have seen this over and over again. We have hundreds of examples of people who have started jobs that they never would have gotten before because of HR policies or just the fear of attempting to get the job based on their backgrounds. And we've seen them not only convert from our temp to perm, but to get put into leadership positions with those organizations. And I'll share a couple of those in a minute. That's loyalty. Those are people that remember who took care of them when they came home. The second thing is there's no downside to employing people with records. Everyone wins. The economy wins, families win, that individual wins, communities win, because people that might have historically been taking from our communities are now creating contributions for our communities. And there is a ripple effect to this, which we won't spend time on today. But when you have a father who's working, of course, you have children who are taken care of, and a partner who has some relief and maybe can drop one of the jobs that he or she had. And so there is no downside. If we employ people who are coming out of incarceration, there are no losers in that equation. And then the third win for you is that when your culture is the culture of your organization is strong, of course, I'm telling you what you already know. Everyone wins. If employees are happy, if employees are showing up, if you are not wasting time on turnover and absenteeism, and people aren't having to cover for each other, then the culture of your organization is better and stronger. And so that's our goal. I know that's your goal, and that's a reason to consider second chance hiring. All right, so let's get to where this could fall apart. 3 ways. The first way is you have a mole. And by that, I mean, somebody has decided that you're going to do second chance hiring, and we start bringing people that have backgrounds into your organization, properly prepared, and on your end, properly trained. But then there's somebody on the ground floor who doesn't like the idea of this. And they take it upon themselves to do things like grumble or start rumors or segregate those employees from other employees. Well, we'll just have them over here in this section. Or worse, pull up, print out, and make a big deal out of somebody's background, something that should have been way behind them. If that is going to happen in your culture and in your organization, this will not work. The second thing is, if you in particular, as in leadership, I'm assuming that people on this call are part of leadership. If you are part of leadership and there is not a leadership team rowing in the same direction, this will also fail. It is not enough if your CEO thinks this is the greatest idea in all the world, if your HR department doesn't think it's a good idea. And it's not enough if your HR department is going to fill the production line with fabulous employees, if your director of operations has a problem with somebody in his past who came out of prison, and now he's going to make sure this doesn't work. And so if you are part of the leadership team and you are not on board with this, this will not work. And it's not even worth trying. What we've gotten smarter at over the years is making sure that we are talking to people on the ground floor as frequently as we are talking to people in the C-suite, because that is how it will be a success in your organization. And the third way this will not work, specific to working with Damascus, is that we are in partnership. We take very seriously our partnerships. We want to work with halfway houses. We work with sober living facilities. We work with prisons. We work with companies. We work with judges and prosecutors and the parole authority. We have lots of stakeholders and partners in this, and everyone has to be rowing in the same direction. So if you say, great, Christine, we have 20 spots. We hope you can fill them. We'll expand our HR policies. We're going to be open. We're going to get our team ready. Send us those 20 people, and we put them on our van, on our transportation, and we bring them to you. And then you pull up your drawbridge and you say, thanks, we appreciate it. Have a nice day. This will not work. The partnership is what makes this work. Shelly will be able to share with you what her interaction was with our team and why that, when things go right or wrong, is a huge, important, integral piece of keeping second chance hiring strong. So let me give you just a couple of examples of people that we've worked with, people that you, of course, would want at your organization. This is Curtis. Curtis was in my class. Curtis is 6'9", 300 pounds. And he ambled into my classroom at Ross Correctional back in 2018. And with his permission, I'm sharing his story with you. And quickly went into all the reasons why he could never be a regular guy at a regular job out in the world. We talked about his charges. We talked about his relationship with drug dealing. We talked about his mother. We talked about all the things in our curriculum, all the things that he had set up as reasons why a regular and normal organization would not be a match for him. So he finished my class and then got so much from it that he asked if he could be the assistant in the next group. And through that experience, what he did is very much helped me in the classroom, but he was also a mentor and a tutor for the people who were doing the homework back in the prison blocks. And when he came out in 2020, he got stable in his housing in Columbus, Ohio, and became an intern for Damascus. This is right before COVID, in the middle of COVID, actually. And so Curtis is now gainfully employed in Columbus. First job he's ever had that did not involve drug trafficking, is a delightful employee for the organization in Columbus. And this is someone who came into my classroom with no intention of ever doing anything but trafficking drugs. So he's a great example. The second one, Tanshay, just another short example of someone who's in my classroom who had, if you want to click the picture, Melanie, who had other job experiences in the past, but had a lot of associations outside of the classroom, outside of prison, that continually pulled him back into a world that wasn't congruent with staying in a full-time job. So I merely show Tanshay to let you know he's now working with Worthington Industries in Columbus, doing fabulous, and a great example of someone who recognized through our curriculum that if he was going to move ahead with his vision and his dreams, he was going to have to leave some people behind. And that's what he was willing to do on the other side of incarceration. The last one, it's actually more than 3 people, but these gentlemen are holding cupcakes because this was the day back in, 2017, I think, that they were converting from temp to permanent hire at the company that they are working at in Mason, Ohio. And so Phil on the right, he not only converted in 2017 to full-time, he is now and has been their third shift supervisor at this organization for the last 3 years. Corey on the left stayed there for 3 years, and he wanted something closer to his home in Sabina. So when we partnered with an organization in Leesburg, he moved over there, and he is currently one of the shift supervisors for that organization in Leesburg. Mike in the back was someone there for up to 4 years, and then found a different job outside of Damascus in Dayton, which was closer to his house. And I don't mention the fourth gentleman because there is the very real possibility that people will not be successful. And this gentleman relapsed shortly after his conversion. And I want to bring that to all of you to let you know that we know that you know that we know that not everyone in this effort is going to be successful. He has relapsed. He came back out of prison, worked with us again, relapsed again, and is now back incarcerated. And we will be here. That's one of Damascus's mantras. There are infinite opportunities with us. As long as somebody is working, we're working with them. And so when this gentleman comes back out of incarceration again, we will be with him as well. So finally, my 3 pieces of unsolicited advice as we hear from Shelly and as we answer your questions. One of them is to take advantage of the expertise. Again, this is not about me saying you shouldn't be talking to other places or staffing or reentry organizations. There's a lot of great resources out there. What we're saying is take advantage of what we know from a business perspective, what a 7 years in doing this perspective, and what we know about incarceration and under-resourced lives. Our partners know that they can call us for any reason. If it's just to say, hey, I'm not understanding what's happening with this particular person, or hey, can you come in and tell our staff more about the value systems that are distinct between middle class and poverty and why those sometimes clash in the workplace. Whatever it is that you need to know to make second chance hiring a success in your organization, take advantage of the expertise. It's out there. We have it. We're happy to share it. The second thing is, if possible, suspend what you think you know about this. If you've not done it, if your HR people are screaming behind the scenes, we can't do this. If your risk people are saying, no, there's no way, I would invite you to have a new lens. Again, I mentioned there's no one I've taken into the prison system who hasn't been shocked by the people they've met. And that has been the same response we've had with our employment partners, is that not only have the people we brought, generally speaking, not always, generally speaking, been a surprise in their work ethic and, just in general, their demeanor, but in many cases, they've outworked the people that were working there before. So I've had some key people where the internal dissension wasn't about who we were bringing, but the fact that they were showing up the people that were already there. So that creates a problem. It's a problem I like to have. And then the third thing is just trust the process. If this is a foreign venture for you, there are going to be things that aren't what you're accustomed to. I'll give you an example of that. If we're working with people who are still in the halfway house, they are technically still finishing out their sentences in some cases, but we can put them into employment anyway. In fact, that's a really brilliant way of getting someone stable, is to have them begin their employment before they're all the way home. But that might mean for your organization that we're talking about different things than you might be talking about with your employees, such as, hey, Bill's on your second shift, but Bill has to ride our transportation home. That there's no debating that. Bill doesn't get to hop a ride with Sam, who also works in his department. In the past, you may not have involved yourself with how people got to and from work, but this might be a new way. This might be a new conversation that our team is having with your team, which is, hey, these 10 guys come on the van and these 10 guys leave on the van, and there's no negotiating that. So I would say trust the process and work with the team that you're given, trust their expertise and their knowledge. And if you're willing to suspend what you think you know about this population and what's possible, there are really great things that can happen. So that's a really quick overview of second chance hiring. I'm going to turn it over to Shelly to share what she would like about her experience working with us. And this last slide that's up there, you'll see Mike Carr is our Director of Sales and Operations. He is the first point of contact for any organization that would like to further explore this or just learn more, question more, ask anything about something I haven't covered. Mike is a great resource for that. So I've warned him that I put his email on this presentation and that it will be spread throughout this conference. And so please feel free to email Mike and set up any time to talk with him. And with that, I will introduce Shelly. Thank you, Shelly, for joining us.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to get to share with all of you in the audience my experience with Damascus. I consider now, after leaving my last employer, as you can tell, Christine and I are still connected, even though I don't get to employ any of her people. At this time, my current employer, Rheinstahl Corporation, we do not have the luxury of being able to determine to go ahead and hire or have second chance individuals or recently released individuals because of our Department of Defense contracts. So we have some limitations in what kinds of changes and exceptions that we can make personally here at Rheinstahl. However, at DeCunic North America, when I was there from 2016 to 2018, we did partner with Christine and Todd and their group to address a very large issue that we had in turnover and being able to attract individuals to staff our 24/7 production lines that we had at DeCunic. So one of the great things about Christine and her team is that they are fantastic about coming in and educating the entire company and all of the leaders on the process and helping and letting us determine how we want to work with them. So one of the great things was that they came in and they educated all of us on our options. We could set what types of backgrounds we were willing to accept. We got to educate Damascus and their team on our culture and the things that we were hoping to achieve with the people that we were bringing in, long-term and short-term. And they just became an amazing partner for us. Carly was my representative who came in and worked with me, and she would bring the employees, the potential employees, in for interviewing with me. And they just were amazing when it came to helping me understand who was looking for what kind of different skill sets they all had to offer for us, what their goals were for the going forward part of their life. If they were looking to, maybe they had a degree of some sort from their previous life and then had a sideways time out in incarceration out of society, and then they came back in. They let us know all of those things, their previous work experience. We as an organization chose to leave the drug screening and the background checks to Damascus and their team. After we set our parameters for them of what we were comfortable with, they followed those to the T. So we trusted the team to make sure that all of those things were being met. So I will tell you that one of the great success stories about my time with the individuals that we had on staff at DeCunic, I will say that I have 5 individuals who we brought in to work on our floor. And we are actually, even though I've been gone from that company for over 2 years, I'm still connected with them on social media and still know what's going on with their new jobs or their jobs. Some of them are still at DeCunic, and keeping in touch with them and get to see the changes and the great things that are happening in their families. So We did have, I will say, we had some bumps in the road, sometimes with our staffing at DeCunic, and most of those bumps in the road occurred with the employee base that did not have a record. And so to Christine's point, if you don't have everyone on your staff really on board, you're going to have to be really good about policing and getting out the message as to why this is great for that individual who is resisting having someone who's reentering on the floor next to them. So we did experience that, and we were really proactive about addressing it. We partnered a lot with Christine and her team when we did that. Some of those battles we won, and some of them we did not, you know. So, but overall, I will say we took a 117% turnover rate in our shop floor back then and reduced it to a 48% turnover rate, which was a huge godsend. I do want to say something about what Christine said about the loyalty factor. You know, when you give an individual a chance to make a legal, meaningful living outside of their time of incarceration, and give them a chance to do something good and do it legally and not have to feel like they're forced to go back to what put them in prison again, you are really making a ripple effect through all kinds of things that you can't even imagine. Individuals that I'm still in touch with that I came in contact with through Damascus are married. They've got new babies. They have bought homes. And now they're not only, they haven't reoffended, but they're productive, great members of society. And now their children, children's children are going to have another chance, to a totally different chance than they would have had those individuals reoffended. So, you know, that's just my little personal shtick about Damascus. If I could, I'd have them here right now if it were up to me. So, and I'm sure that a lot of you have some questions. I will tell you, let's see, some of the questions that one of the gals asked earlier.
Yeah, I can address all the questions in the chat.
Perfect.
Are you done? And then we can move on.
Sure. Let's do questions. I think that's great. Otherwise, I'll just ramble.
It's okay. I think, and if everybody mutes themselves, because I think sometimes we have more than one person talking, there's some type of background, so echo. So then I'll ask the questions, and then whoever wants to answer, just unmute yourself and you ladies go. So one of the questions in the chat is that they're sure that their agency has second chance workers, but not sure that the other workers know that. Is it important that for the program that everyone within the organization knows that?
I think that's a great question. And we have changed our opinion about that over the years. Part of that is getting to know different cultures around the city, trying this in different ways. And so I'm going to give you my opinion, but that, if you go back to what I said earlier, I don't get to tell an organization what their culture should be. So we make suggestions all the time. Because we talk about the importance of integrating people into your culture, it would make sense that you would treat them however you treat other employees. So if other employees come into your organization and nobody's talking about what they were doing in 1974, then that shouldn't be what's happening with second chance employees. However, what we have learned is that there are very few secrets in your organization. I don't care who you are. People have talked to each other about each other. And so we've taken a very different approach, which is we are not hiding anything. we have two things that we now say very loudly. Damascus is not a charity. In fact, my husband, when he talks about this, says we are not the Felon farm. You don't get to come over and pick out 3 people that will help you meet your goals. These are individuals with families who want to better their life in society. So we're not a charity, which is why we operate like staffing, and we do have a markup like any other staffing company would. And the other thing is we don't hide what we do. We are very vocal about what we do. So there's that really important balance between bringing people into your organization and giving them the same respect you would give any employee, and also not pretending like we're trying to get away with something, which is let's not, the guy over there with the 22 tattoos, which of course everyone has tattoos now, it's very easy to find out if somebody has been in a situation in the criminal justice system. So we're not hiding anything. We're also not bringing megaphones in on day one. I mentioned earlier that we have a transportation company. And so in some ways, I'll give an example. When a company said, listen, it might have been Decunic who said, look, we need 10 people, but don't bring them all on the same van. It wasn't you guys. No. Don't bring them all in the same van because we don't want people to know that they're all those people. And I said, well, we're already in the wrong spot. Let's start over. We are going to bring them in the same van because that's how we know they get to work. That's how we know we have a 99% show up rate because we're bringing people. There's no flat tire or my car didn't start or my girlfriend needed my car. So it's something we would work with you and your staff on to say that toggle between integrating, treating people exactly the same, not segregating, but also not making a big deal out of it so that people are like, what's happening over there? Or not hiding it, I should say, so that people are coming up with their own versions of what's going on. Shelly, did you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that you need to feel out your own company and your own people, that particularly who you're going to be putting them side by side with, right? So to Christine's point earlier, you know, some of the individuals are going to come in the van and some of them are still in halfway houses. Some of them have an ankle bracelet on still. And that could go off in the middle of their shift and say, oh, I've got to go check in or whatever the case is. And if you don't share with the individuals in the line next to them or in the job with them, that there are people on shift who have a story, then when those things become evident, it does create that that sense of, oh, they're trying to put something over on us, or maybe they're sneaking them in because they're dangerous or whatever the case is. So I highly recommend that you are as honest and open with your employee base as you can be and not try and hide it, but also stress to them, look, probably other people in your shift have records. You just don't know it. And to remind them that, you as an organization are making sure that they're safe and that everything is fine and that they can trust you as leadership to make sure that there isn't anything for them to be concerned about.
Thanks, ladies. Do you both want to speak to, I think it's sort of the elephant in the room, is most of individuals who are incarcerated, there is some element of drug use typically. Do you want to talk about the stats on that, just so everyone can understand sort of how individuals who we just think are bad people, how that their drug use and drug involvement and drug activity may have led them to that? So I'll leave it up to either one of you.
I want to make sure I heard the question correctly. So you want us to answer what role addiction might play in this population in general, or how that affects the work? I'm sorry, I don't want to answer what you didn't ask. Can you ask that again?
Yeah, so what do you think the impact is of the individuals who are re-entering into work? What impact drug use is involved with that?
It's huge. It's huge. We don't ever pretend it isn't. And even before the opioid crisis, was a huge issue. One of the early lessons, I know Shelly has much to say about this.
I do.
One of the early lessons that I learned a million things the first couple years that we started Damascus. Remember, all my work was on the inside of the prison, so I hadn't given much thought to what happens on the outside. So in our first couple years, I learned so much, and one of it was, no disrespect to anyone on this call, but we didn't bring the drugs to the organization. They already existed before Damascus showed up. So that's both a relief and, oh my gosh, there's a lot of drugs out in the world. And partly I learned that because our guys coming back to the halfway houses sometimes got their drugs from other employees at our employment partners. So it is, I would say, currently an unsolvable problem, but it is definitely one that we can mitigate. I don't think we're going to eradicate drugs, not on my watch. I don't think any HR person believes they can either. But what we do, one of our mantras for Damascus, two things. The social support that we talked about includes recovery and working with people, walking with people as they're working on their addictions. The other really important piece about what we do is we have a mantra that we don't protect bad behavior. We say that from the very beginning, all the way through to the end, which means if you are a worker of ours and you choose to use or sell or buy drugs somewhere in the equation, we will not protect that. We will not protect you from your PO. We will not protect you from the police if it's that large. We will not protect you from getting fired from one of our partner organizations. If you make that decision, then we will follow through with whatever sanction is required. And you can come back as many times as you need to when you've decided differently. But while you are using, you cannot be part of our workforce. So that doesn't mean we don't help them in other ways. But I'm not sure I'm answering the question other than to say it is a problem. We don't pretend it's not a problem. And we work as hard as our partners to try to eradicate and sniff out and do something about that problem. Shelly, do you want to say more?
I'll just say that, we had, everywhere I've worked, I've had experience with drugs in the workplace. So I think that most employers, if you don't have your blinders on, understand that is a consistent problem. When I was able to work with Damascus, I worked in the I-75 corridor and during the height of the opioid issues. And so those problems were there before we ever partnered with Damascus. I will say that it can lead to some scapegoating, though, of the Damascus employees. And so as leaders, all of you on the call, you need to be cognizant and really have a good handle on what the state of your organization is when it comes to drug use before you bring in and partner with Damascus. I will say that I feel like one of my failings was that we thought we had a better handle on the drug problems in our organization than we actually did. And many times, even before I came into that organization, they had recognized and known that they had drug problems on their shop floor. And we also, before I partnered with Damascus, I had plenty of experiences with people without records who had drug issues and were terminated because of those things. But I would say to make sure that you do have a good handle on that, because one of the things that troubled me was once it started to reveal itself that it was still such an issue, I felt a lot of responsibility that the people who had not been incarcerated were having a bad influence on people who were still trying to recover. And so, that was a really hard pill for me to swallow, that, oh my gosh, I've put these individuals who are looking for another chance and trying to recover, and I've put them right into a situation where they're being exposed to pressures and things like that. So my advice as an employer is to make sure that you have a really good handle on that situation within your organization before you partner with Damascus or any other second chance group.
Thank you, Shelley. And I will add one more thing. It's also shifting a little bit with marijuana becoming legalized. And so we've seen in the last few years, we've had many people fired from our partners over the years for THC when the random drug tests. And, I'm personally not a user, so I have no dog in this hunt, except as an employer, I'm very excited that is shifting because that's not going away anytime soon. And so we do have a couple of partners have already decided that is not something that is a fireable offense any longer. And I think we'll see more of that as it goes along. That doesn't replace the other questions that people have, employer partners of ours, about what's called medically assisted treatment for people that are taking prescription Suboxone or other things like that they've been prescribed in order to come off a stronger drug. Those are discussions that we have partner by partner by partner. And we have our opinions on that, but again, you get to choose your culture.
Great. Thanks so much, ladies. We have another question. I think this is more for you, Christine. Do you work with reentry felons that are looking to start a business as opposed to being employed by one?
This is easy. Nope, we don't. I encourage that. I think that's exciting, but it is not part of our mission, except to maybe steer people to things. We do talk in our classroom curriculum about, what is your vision and what are you after? And there are a number of people that are interested in doing their own business for lots of reasons. What I've also discovered over the years is a lot of people who are incarcerated believe that's one of their options, one of their only options, because they don't historically have opportunities to go into larger organizations like some of you on this call and be part of someone else's organization. So no, sorry, we do not currently offer any services for people who are attempting to start their own business.
Thanks, Christine. I have another question, and either one of you ladies can jump in. Any suggestion on how to vet and work with second chance individuals who are willing to volunteer before seeking employment?
I'm not sure I know what they mean. Volunteer at the organization, and what would be the reason for that? Is the person who asked the question able to share more on what they're asking? Volunteer with Damascus or volunteer at some organization? I'm not sure I understand. Sorry.
I can try to interpret. I guess maybe they're saying someone who just wants to sort of do a pre-interview and show you the work that they're capable of doing before you actually hire them. I'm assuming, but we can wait and see if that person puts anything clarifying into
Okay,
the question.
I apologize for that. It does lead me to another thing that I wrote down earlier specific to that. When Shelly was sharing about the process she had with Damascus, it reminded me of an important point about the process. Specific to our model, that was actually an outlier for us in that we typically, Damascus does the interviewing and selection of candidates for our partners. And it was a great and successful experiment to work with Shelly and her team, where we still determined who we thought was a good fit, but then Shelly would do an interview with them. And the only reason that worked is because she is so mission-minded about what we're doing that she was after the same things that we were after. And I don't even know if there were any people that you took a pass on. I think it was more, it also acclimated our team. It was like another baton handoff, where by the time they were ready to start work, they had already met Shelly and spent time with her and were very comfortable and excited about that. One piece of our process is that our client reps go with the workers on the first day of employment. And that's just for comfort. It's why people show up. If they've already met me and they know me, and now it's time to start work on Thursday, as excited as they are, they're going to get nervous and anxious. And a lot of people in a regular situation will just not show up. And because we're going with them, they have that extra level of comfort. In Shelly's case, they also had that comfort when we parted ways, because they had already met her as well. Okay, I can see in the chat room about the clarification, and I'm sorry, I'm still questioning it. It says, I think, do you have suggestions on how to work with a second chance individual who's willing to work on a pretrial basis before being hired? Would that be so that the individual can test whether or not they like the job? Is that what you're asking? Or as a means to get someone hired? If it's the second, I will say this, our agreement, and this may not be every second chance organization, our agreement is if we are in partnership, the organization and I, you have spots that you need to fill, we're going to fill them. There's no trial. It's an arrangement that says you agree that there's a 90-day temp to hire. If our employees, our Damascus workers fulfill their end, they do the work and they do a good job, then you will hire them permanently. We don't have any permanent temp work or day labor. We don't operate in that. Our goal is to get people into sustainable positions that they can support their family in. So we wouldn't have an opportunity for someone, but as far as maybe I can connect with this person offline and get more information about what they're asking. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. They can just put their information directly into the chat, and then we can make sure that that gets over to you, Christine, and then you can thoroughly answer their question. Our next question is, one of the questions is, what's the application process for a felon to join your program?
Okay, so there are a number of ways where we encounter the folks that we work with. The first one, as I mentioned, are people that we work with specifically in the prison classroom, and they come out and they are our graduates. There are other people who come out of incarceration that we don't meet, whether they're in prisons that we're not currently in, and just have gotten word of who we are. And so they will contact us directly and say, hey, I was in such and such prison and I heard about you. We also meet people in halfway houses and sober living facilities who are finishing out part of their incarceration, and we are regularly visiting those facilities every week in Columbus and Cincinnati in northern Kentucky. So we have a presence there. But if you know somebody who's already home, who has a felony background, who has struggled to get permanent work, the quickest way for them to get involved is to simply call our office, and that number is on our website. And I think it might also be on a slide. But if you just, if you Google Team Damascus, www.Team Damascus, information about how to connect with us is on there, whether it's the person who wants to be contacted or if you just want to direct them to more information. That's the quickest way. And what will happen after that is our office will vet them to see what their circumstance is. Are they calling from a halfway house? Are they already home? Have they been home 20 years? Are they working somewhere, but they want to work somewhere else? And our folks in the office will determine who then on our staff will connect with them, what geography they're in, what shift they're after, what their charges are, whether or not that we have something that is even a fit for them. We keep our employment partners pretty small because we'd rather have 10 or 20 people at the same site than to have 20 people at 20 different sites. Part of that is transportation. Part of that is just the team culture that we try to build.
Thanks so much, Christine. And what I'll do at the end of the session, I'll make sure to put up that last slide that has all the contact information so that everyone can note that. I'll get to another question. Are there any clients / felons interested in part-time during their transition? Maybe start part-time and work into full-time once fully trained.
Yeah, we do meet people that, and part of our assessment is to figure out what people are ready for. A lot of people that I work with inside the prisons will, they've been there for years and they can't wait to get to work. And we remind them that because you believe you're ready doesn't mean that you will have the stability or all the pieces in place. So we will try not to place someone into employment if there are pieces of their life that are unstable, whether it's housing or transportation or whatever it is. We don't personally have part-time work, but it is a good idea for a lot of people. And I say that because many of the people we work with have never had a full-time job. They've either worked under the table for Uncle Bill for 15 years, or they've trafficked drugs, or just didn't work at all. That's as common with the women that we work with as the men. Or it's been a while. If somebody's just done 8 years in prison, and even if they had a job inside the prison, it's been a while since they got up 5 days in a row for a 10-hour shift. So some people, whether for health or age or time or experience, may not be ready for a 40-hour work week. And so we will encourage them to do part-time work, but that's not something that we work with.
Okay, thanks so much, Christine. We have, looks like one more question in the chat, and then I have a couple questions for you guys, because this has been so interesting and exciting for me that I don't know how I'm still sitting and not standing up. But last question in the chat that we have is, what geographic footprint do you have? So who do you work with? Is it just Ohio people?
Mute. Currently, and again, because of COVID, we are smaller than we'd like to be at the moment. We are in the Cincinnati region, and we have employers, just thinking of them off the top of our head, in Mason, Monroe, Hamilton, Northern Kentucky, Leesburg, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Hebron, Ohio, not Kentucky. So our footprint currently is from Columbus south down to Northern Kentucky. Our footprint, if all goes well, is the rest of Ohio by the end of this year. And we've had interest in Indiana and Kentucky, and part of our reluctance now is that our model, as I mentioned, is a continuum. So what we won't do is move into an entire region or state if we don't have the partnership in the classroom inside prisons as well. So we're working in both Indiana and Kentucky, talking to people in the state systems so that we can widen that continuum. But that is our footprint now. And thank you, Dan Bates, for asking that. Dan Bates is a champion, and I appreciate him recommending us for this. We've had a fantastic time working with him and his team in Hamilton at the chamber there. And he also mentioned in the chat that he could work with people who have the desire to do entrepreneurial things. So thank you, Dan, for that. I highly recommend in return that you work with them. It's just a dynamic team, and it's exciting to see what they're trying to do for a region. And it's been a great partnership. So thank you, Dan.
Okay, we did get one more question in the chat. Do felons that are already home, are clean, and have their own transportation but have trouble keeping work because of their record, are they required to ride or use your transportation as well?
No one is required to use our transportation. And some exciting news we had this year is in 2022, we made our transportation free to all of our workers. In the past, we charged a nominal per diem charge for different reasons, but we tweaked our business model, and we do not charge. But most people are not trying to ride our transportation. That's not a goal most people have, that they hope that they can ride the Damascus van to work for the rest of their life. But we know that people coming out of incarceration usually don't have transportation or their license or any of that in order right away. So it's usually temporary, but no one is required. In fact, the goal is to get people sustainable lives. So if someone is already in that space where they can get to work on their own, beautiful, call me tomorrow. We have jobs right this minute for exactly that person, where we don't have a Damascus route and we rely on people who all have their own transportation to get there. So yes.
Okay, so I have a question that's open for both of you. I think this has been so enlightening and heartfelt. Can each of you tell me a little bit about how you were led to being involved with this community, and what you're passionate about, why you felt the need to venture into assisting others in this way?
Shelly, do you want to start? Okay. Well, I mean, I'll keep my story short, but mine, I was in the corporate world, and then I was home for a living, raising my children. And I started as a jail chaplain in Hamilton County justice system as a way to get relief at the end of the day for my 5 children who were very tiny at the time. So for me, it's a spiritual experience. Damascus is faith-based in that we believe that we should be doing this work. It's not what we lead with. It's certainly not what we lead with our partners. But that, for me, was the impetus to leave the corporate world and to do this because it impacts the corporate world. I understand the corporate world, but this is also a very big, seemingly unsolvable problem. It's an expensive problem. Locking people up is expensive. And we aren't, at least in Ohio, we aren't reducing those numbers. We are now currently reducing those numbers. But reentry was a new concept to the DRC not 20 years ago. We weren't thinking about what to do when people got to prison. We were incarceration. The history of incarceration is, for a long time, it was just let's get them there and then the problem will solve itself. Well, it doesn't. So all those factors combined, for me, I became a chaplain in the Hamilton County Justice System, and then I moved to the prison system as a chaplain for years and just really saw brokenness, broken people, broken systems, and wanted to be part of that solution because there is a way, and I feel like we are trying to build it. There is a way to change and stem this, but people have to understand why they're going to prison in the first place in order for them to stop going back to prison. So a lot of our work is about bringing that awareness and understanding to people about their own stories and the reasons they got there in the first place. That's the hugest aha I see in the span of a week is someone really, that's the cycle and the eddy that they're in and they don't even know why it keeps happening. So that's why we keep doing it. We've seen impact. I've seen lives changed. Even when we butt up against the system, because it is a system, we've seen so many individual wins that we will keep doing this until a different door opens for us.
So my story kind of mirrors Christine in the fact that, I'm in human resources because humans and people are so important to me. I feel like my job in human resources is really an extension of lay ministry and a lot of my spirituality as well. One of the things I love about my job in general is that just by nature of what I do, I get to impact people's lives and their families' lives for generations sometimes to come because of either employing them or counseling them to keep their job or helping them in career growth or training or whatever that might be. And so as an extenuation of that, when we had the chance to partner with Damascus and really make a difference in the lives of people who were trying to do better, it was such a natural thing for me to latch on to because it's really very much at the core of who I am and why I do what I do in my career. I am a mother of 6 biological children, 8 altogether. And I, just really believe that a mission like Damascus is so good for everybody involved. And it makes me feel good to even though I can't employ their people now, to be able to be any kind of a voice or champion for the group gives me great honor and pleasure. To be able to help anyone else who is able to employ Damascus people, just to help you understand what an amazing thing it is for your corporate health, because they are going to meet a need that you have. We all are looking for people who will show up to work, will do a good job, will add to our cultures and help propel our companies forward. And in return, it does the same thing for their own personal lives and families and future generations and society in general. It helps with the tax base, all kinds of things. So I just really I have a personal passion for the group. I believe in Todd and Christine and their team and why they do what they do. And I've seen firsthand the success, and I'm really proud and glad to be able to be a part of it.
Thank you both so much. There was another question that popped up that says, do you have to be a felon to join the program, or can it be anyone who has been to prison and wanting to make a change?
No, that's funny. Every once in a while, we have someone call our office who has zero record. And they're like, hey, I heard you have some great jobs. And that's funny to us. No, you don't have to have a record. Most people, if they don't have a record, don't have a need to work with us. But when we say people with felonies, that's because that's usually the hardest hire. But it's really anyone who's looking, you know, as we mentioned before, poverty and under-resourced lives is really the problem here. And prison is a result. And so anyone who's struggling, who has barriers, what we do not have the capacity for currently, and I don't know if we will when we expand, is if there are severe mental health issues, those sorts of things. We do have some graduates that cannot hold a job. They just simply can't. And so they're in our social support care, and that they're welcome to come by anytime or call us or talk to their facilitator or whatever, but we cannot employ them. So yeah, anyone who has barriers to employment is welcome to give us a call.
Thanks so much, Christine and Shelly. So as you guys were talking, I was thinking we all have individuals in our lives who think of anyone who has been incarcerated as the others and they're not redeemable. How would do you guys have any tips when it comes to businesses talking to their employees about that, for them to open up the idea that they're not just others and that they may have had a different plight in life and some obstacles, and our family members as well? How would you typically start a conversation with someone about being more open and understanding of second chance employees?
Well, I would say something I normally lead with if I'm speaking at a large conference is we talk about how we are all going to get markers, and I'm going to ask people to write the worst thing they've ever done on their forehead. And then we're going to walk around the rest of the conference with that Sharpie on our forehead. And, you know, people laugh at that, but the truth is we all have something that is the worst thing we've ever done. And we all have something that we hope no one ever finds out about us, without exception. So I start a lot of conversations on that front, which is I've never been to prison, or at least I've never spent the night in prison, I should say. But there are things in my life that I wish I could do over, or that I didn't get caught for, or that I hope, you know, I believe I'm forgiven for, but I don't want my neighbor to know about. We all have that. And if you don't believe you have that, first of all, you're not even hearing me. But secondly, what we're asking people to do is not suspend what they dislike about choices other people have made. It's just to spend some time on their own humanness and just say, you know, we've all had our worst day. We've all had our worst moment, and we all have our secrets. And that's okay. That's a part of being a part of the human race. So it's about equalizing and rehumanizing people to the idea that someone else's, we're really good in our society in saying, well, at least I didn't do that. And what we try to do is distill that, which is relative. I grew up in a very safe and supported childhood. So lucky for me, I didn't have to wonder where my food was going to come from. Had I had to wonder about that, I assure you, my choices would have been different. And so it's about just reminding people that it's a value system issue. It's not a better or worse issue. It's about resources. And if you don't have them, you're going to operate in a way that is distinct from a time when you did have resources. So that's really for me, that's a lot of the conversation. That's a lot of our activities inside the prison. It's a lot of my workshop activities as well. It's just bringing that awareness. Shelly, did you want to comment on that at all?
Well, I'll just also add to that, you know, not only is it, do we all have things, but even if you're not someone who's capable of recognizing in yourself that there are things that you would not really want everyone else in the world to know, or be judged by, there's a meme that goes around that says, your mistake is a lesson, not a life sentence. And these individuals who are coming out of incarceration, they have paid the price that society says they must pay for whatever infraction they committed. So who are we, and why are we so much better to be able to say, well, I know that you did all the things that they said that you had to do in your sentencing, but now I'm going to make you do X, Y, Z, or I'm going to hold you to this further consequence. It isn't fair. They've been sentenced, they've been tried, sentenced, and done their time to boil it all the way down. And now it is time for them to get their next chance and to start over. They've paid their price. And wouldn't I, if God forbid I had made a horrible choice, do I not want a chance to start over again? Yes, I certainly do. Or don't you, if it was your child and they made a horrible choice, whether it put them in prison or not, do you hold that choice against them for the rest of their life? No, you do not. So I think that that's the way I always approach that conversation, trying to help them relate it to maybe another family member of theirs that maybe, what if it was your child? What if it was your brother-in-law? What, and try and help them understand that, it's really there, but for the grace of God go I, right? And it really is the difference when you hear some of the stories and the circumstances of the people that I had the great privilege to get to know and be in contact with. It really is humbling to think that they even still have the will to try and start over again and to want to.
Not really sure.
Lost Shelly.
Yeah.
I love these questions that are out here.
Yeah, let's get to those because we only have a few more minutes, and I'm
Okay.
sorry that we lost Shelly. Hopefully, she's trying to get back in. I'll get her back in.
Okay. So one of the questions is, how would you go from, actually the one below, what are some of the biases that you two had to overcome to best serve? I love that question because we do an exercise, we do a whole section on bias in our prison curriculum. It's so powerful. And I could go on and I won't, but your question was about us. So I will, show all my cards. I'm a West Side gun-toting Republican girl, right? So who knew this is where I would end up? A lot of my biases before I was educated in this area was about choices. And what a lot of people that we encounter in the business world say, well, if they would just choose differently, these people would just choose differently. I think that's a pretty standard mindset. And it has really equipped me to be able to have those conversations moving forward because I, came from blue collar means and, what I now know is a completely safe family. But the whole bootstrap, all of that, all those biases that say, well, I could do it. Certainly if I can do it, why aren't people choosing this? And, fast forward 2 decades and I understand why people don't just wake up every day and choose to be amazing because they might be just trying to survive Tuesday. So that is a bias I had to overcome. I learned it. I have a book coming out this year. You'll see all my confessions about how I got it way wrong, went to college and realized I didn't know anything I thought I knew about life, and this certainly not in this area. So those are my biases. It's just recognizing that opportunities are not equal, and our mindsets come from what we are raised to know. And so, yes, you can pre-order my book. If I can get my publisher to get on his mark, yes, thank you. But that's my bias. Shelly, did you want to contribute to that at all?
Sure. I'll say I'm kind of like Christine. I grew up in a very black and white military preacher's household, and so I was absolutely ruled by right and wrong. And I will say that as I grew as a teenager, I made some really stupid choices, and I did a lot of rebelling. And I think, and there are things that I probably did as a teenager that, probably could have landed me in areas where we might be having a different conversation. But I think that as my life experience taught me that things aren't so black and white, as I came out into the world and started to experience some other things. And so a lot of my journey was really just going through some really tough times in my life, and realizing that I didn't always react to those in a healthy way. And so I think it's given me an appreciation for the fact that, everybody has a story. If you were to look at Christine and myself, you might, make assumptions about our lives and our pasts. And I think you would be quite surprised by the obstacles and the things that we've overcome and the things that have happened in our lives. But I also think that that test is part of our testimony that is really what leads us to be passionate about particularly this group of people, in that, we realize, that it could have been different for us as well. And it helps us to see that in other people.
Yeah, I guess that there go I by the grace of God. A lot of us need to realize that. And the most important thing that I guess we can take from this session that you two ladies have been amazing and brilliant with is, we really do need to understand we're all individuals. And as a business owner, you can benefit from giving that person that second chance. And as you said earlier in your presentation, Christine, they're, for the most part, the most loyal and hardworking individuals. If you just give someone a second chance, and we've all dealt with that in our lives, in which someone just shows that they care about you and they're there for you, how much you're endeared to them. So I will allow you to say a last couple of words, and then we will end the session. But thank you, ladies, so much. You've both been so great.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone who contributed questions too. I will just say this, I made a point of segregating second chance hiring from our organization. And the reason we do that is because for many individuals we work with, this is a first chance. And so, we're still looking for our word to describe what we do. But it is a first chance for a lot of people who are either refacing the world sober for the first time, or without ties to old, habits or communities or people. And so it's exciting for us to watch people succeed that way. I would invite anyone who wants to know more about what we're doing on a regular basis to just go to our website and put their name on the mailing list, and we'll add you to the newsletter, which will be coming out monthly starting this week. And there it is. Yep. So teamdamascus.com. And then if you have other questions that are pertinent to what you're doing, or just more interested in what we do, please email me, or, we can schedule coffee or whatever you want to learn. And if you have a direct question about potentially starting something at your organization, please do give Mike a call, an email, and he'll call you, and he can answer. He can find out if it's a fit. It isn't always a fit, but sometimes it is. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate the interest and the attention, and I appreciate my friend Shelly. Shelly, did you want to lead us out of here? You're on mute.
I'll just say that, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. I hope that you will really explore this option for your hiring needs and your staffing needs. I alluded to earlier that, I still have relationships with some of the individuals that I was fortunate enough to hire at DeCunic. And it's so gratifying, and you can really make a difference in your company and in the world at large, if you open up your resources to this group of individuals. It truly is an untapped workforce that could do amazing things for your own company and for the state and world at large.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.